All right, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday live streams. This is becoming a regular thing, and it's a lot of fun to get to go and talk through some acquisition topics. We talk through what businesses are good and bad, and we get to answer some of the chat if you guys jump on while we are live here. So remember, we're trying to do this weekly, Thursdays, right around 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're trying to get up and running. The last couple of weeks haven't been the best, but we're getting better every single week with the quality of the streams. So I appreciate everyone's patience. And we're going to jump right in again and get started on the chart that we ended last week's stream kind of abruptly. We had some technical difficulties. And so we're going to jump right back into that chart, which listed the 40 businesses that I get a lot of questions about. If you look at last week's stream, the first, half hour or so was me going through all the different businesses and why I liked them, why I didn't, kind of give me a short little excerpt on them. Now we're going to go through, and you guys are going to see this pull up on the screen in a sec. We're going to go through all the way from amazing to good to okay to bad to horrible. And I'm going to take those 40 businesses that we were talking about and I'm going to throw them onto that chart to show you what I really think about these businesses and if they are good, if they're bad, and why I think that way. So without further ado, let's get it moving over here. All right, so if we look at the first one, you guys can see, as I just mentioned, we have amazing all the way down to horrible, and we're going to get started on the first one, which is a gym. All right, so if I look at this, you're going to see the gym in the bottom left-hand corner. That's that little white box. And so for a gym, I'm going to say on a scale of amazing to horrible when it comes to acquisitions, gyms are squarely in the okay grouping. All right. And the reason why I put them in okay, so let me explain this in a little bit more detail. So an amazing acquisition is going to be something that is recurring revenue, it has a barrier to entry, and it's recession resistant. Right. That's amazing. It hits all three and it hits them strongly. A horrible one is going to have none of them. Now, between good and bad, you're going to have variations of how, like, they might tick off two of the boxes, they might tick off one of the boxes, and we're going to talk through some of those varying degrees of strength in relation to those three categories. All right, so that's how we're doing this. So when it comes to a gym is okay because it has recurring revenue, but it does not have a barrier to entry, and it really doesn't, it has a slight barrier to entry. I'll caveat that. Slight barrier to entry. If you're doing a franchise or you're trying to get one started, like, there's a lot of costs with equipment up front if you're doing a heavy equipment type gym. So there are costs to get started. So I would count that as a barrier to entry, but it's definitely not recession resistant. If you're going to be doing a gym that's not a Planet Fitness model, you're going for something more of like a CrossFit model, something more premium, more like $80 to $150 a month in membership. Those things are, when recession times hit, as we found out during COVID, and other times, membership can drop because it's a luxury that people have. And whenever anything is considered a luxury and things happen, that gets hurt right off the bat. So that's why it's in the okay column. All right. So now that we understand how this grid works, we're going to start to run through these a little faster. Restaurant. I'm going to put that in the, between the two, I'm going to put it in the horrible. Restaurants are, now, again, all of these are coming with caveats. Restaurants can be great investments if you know what you're doing. There's plenty of restaurateurs out there that have made a lot of money and people who have acquired restaurants and done well. Push that to the side. For you and me, the average person who does not have that experience, buying a restaurant is very hard to do. The buying is not the hard part, the running is. And so the margins are going to be extremely thin. We're talking sub 10% on average. It's very competitive. You're always having restaurants open up all over you, around you. It's not recurring, right? You're hoping that your customer can enjoy their time and then come back, but there's no subscription plan, right? And the barrier to entry, again, to restaurants really trade at a lower multiple. So while it is still the cost of setting up a kitchen and everything else, it's a lot lower than other types of business models. So you have, and in recession resistance, as soon as people get hurt with their paychecks, as soon as they lose their job or they get a change in the way their salary is, they are going to change the way that they spend on luxury items. And going out to eat, especially at a nice restaurant or just a casual where you're sitting down, those types of things are going to get impacted. All right. So taxi business, I'm putting this in bad. Reason why I'm going to put in bad and not horrible is obviously you have Uber out there, which has totally wrecked a lot of the taxi industry. And then so there's a lot of things on that. Outside of that, the taxis are the reason why I'm not putting in horrible is because there is a barrier to entry, right? You have to get a license. You have to get the medallion, right? You got to pay for that. So there is a barrier to entry there. And it's also recession resistant. People are always going to need to get from point A to point B. Now Uber's out there. Uber's charging very competitive rates compared to taxis. It's much easier user experience. So I think if you're going to go for a taxi business, you want one that's going to be focused on a particular type of industry niche. You want one that's going to be focused on whether it's airport shuttles to hotels or black car service for certain events. You don't want to go out there and try to do a general type of taxi service that's going to compete against Uber because you're going to lose every time, right? So if you niche it really well and you kind of focus in on an industry that is underserved by Uber or Uber doesn't really help in the best of ways, I think you can make it work. So that's why I put it in the bad, but it's not horrible. All right, next is retail store. I'm going to put that in bad. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put that right around, I'm going to put that right in the okay section. The reason why I would put this in okay is because retail stores, it really depends on the product. If this is something that's a very generic product, like something that like people can go to Walmart to get, bad idea, right? That would be horrible. If it's something that's very niche, for instance, like you sell high-end sports goods, fishing gear. There's a store down the street from my house that sells high like fly fishing gear, and they're always packed, right? Because they have a very specific niche. You're not going to Walmart to get the same stuff that they're selling, and they have really good expertise. They kind of cater to their clients, and they do really well. So it depends on the retail section, but if it's the more niche and high-end, the better. But remember, in a recession, those are the first ones to get hit. So again, that's why I'm putting it in the okay, and it's not above that because on the recession resistant side, it could be hurt pretty badly. All right, so let's see. Let's go and do SaaS. SaaS, I'm going to put up towards, on an acquisition side, I'm going to put towards amazing. Now, I know SaaS pretty well. That was my first acquisition, was a SaaS company. SaaS is very recurring. It's depending on the service, very recession resistant depending. And then also there's a barrier to entry. Developing software to use as a service is very expensive, very time consuming unless you're doing it all yourself. And that takes a lot of man hours, right? So it's not something that anyone can start up the next day. It takes a lot of dev time. It takes a lot of expenses. And so it's got that barrier to entry. It's got the subscription aspect. So that's the recurring. And then on the recession resistance, if it's in a industry that is essential, for instance, let's say you provide software to HVAC companies like Service Titan. Service Titan provides it to HVAC, plumbing. A lot of these home service industries use that software. Well, those industries are very recession resistant. So therefore, since those industries are the client user, then that passes on to the software provider. Now, if they're providing software to restaurants, and restaurants during a recession, a lot of them close their doors, well, then a lot of their customers are going to drop off, right? So if your software is focused on an industry that has a very resilient niche, then that is going to be a good buy for you and make it into the amazing category. All right, let's do this. So did that. Let's go and do window cleaning. I'm going to put window cleaning in the, I'm going to put it in the good. And the reason why I'm going to put in the good is because it's definitely recession resistant. It's definitely recurring. The barrier to entry part is where it gets hit, right? Which is why it's not amazing. Barrier to entry in window cleaning is very low. Anyone can go out there, buy some Windex, some paper towels, go talk to a couple store owners, say you're going to do it for very cheaply, and you can go out there and you can start cleaning windows, right? So the competition can easily pop up. Now, the good part about window cleaning is, like I said before, the recession resistance and recurring revenue. These types of businesses have been around forever, and they will continue to be around forever as long as there's windows, which I don't see them going away anytime soon. So getting away from necessarily the sexy, I would consider SaaS sexy, or e-com, or AI, all these really sexy type businesses that are popping up, and focusing more on the boring businesses like window cleaning, and all these other very basic but essential services, that is where the money's going to be made. That's where the best cash flow is. That's where the best multiples are for the buyer. All right. Okay, let's go through these a little quicker, guys. ATM routes. I'm going to put these up in good, and right there, put it up in good. And the reason why I'm not putting in amazing is because there's a low barrier to entry. Anyone can buy an ATM for $3,500. Go to your location, which is the gas station, and say, hey, I'll give you 10% or I'll give you 20% of my processing fee instead of the other guy who's giving you 10, right? And they can try to undercut you. And so that's why I'm not putting in amazing, but I put a good. I have an ATM route, and it does well. Accounting firms. I'll put accounting firms up in good. Where we see here, where did it go? Just lost my accounting firm. Oh, there it is. I put it at horrible. No, absolutely not. We're putting that up at good. Sorry, guys. My mouse is being weird. Okay, that's up at good. So on the accounting firms, the reason why I'm not putting them up at amazing is because of the, well, I'll put it this way. They're a great acquisition. You know what? I'm convincing myself to put it up in amazing. Let's do that. Because they hit all three, right? They're recurring revenue. They got a barrier to entry because you need a license or you need industry experience. And then there's recession resistance as it comes. I mean, death and taxes are the two things you can always rely on. Taxes having to do with accounting firms. So I'm going to put that up there. I've acquired one. Actually, most of my students in my program acquire, if I go by industry, the most of them are actually acquiring accounting firms. So it's pretty interesting. But they're great. Like I said, recession resistance, recurring revenue, barrier to entry, very profitable. Also can get them at a great multiple because they sell on 1x the previous year's revenue, which is different than most other small businesses that are between 2x and 4x cash flow. So that's a tidbit for you guys to take home. All right, next one. The next Facebook, horrible, right? Trendy Franchises, horrible. And let's see if there's another one I can throw in here. And we'll do the Uber. Uber for blank, horrible. The reason why I'm putting these all guys in horrible is because the next Facebook, Uber for blank, and by Uber for blank we mean there's a very common saying like, hey, I created a new app or a new service. It's like Uber for XYZ industry. And so that's normally always tied to a startup or some kind of disruptor, right? You're trying to disrupt an industry. Like Uber disrupted the taxi industry. You're saying that you created something that's going to disrupt another industry. Those things, the reason why we say Uber or the next Facebook is because those guys are unicorns. They're a 1 in a billion company that did what they did. And so that is not something to plan on happening again, especially with yourself on your first deal. So we don't want to go towards the trendy franchises, the ones that are like, for instance, Crumble Cookie, great cookies, they grew like crazy, but now those franchisees are starting to see that they're becoming way less profitable because it's a trend. That trend can go really hot real quick, and then it hits its peak, and then it starts to go downhill. And so we don't want to tie our wagons to trendy franchises. We don't want to tie our wagons to the next Facebook or the Uber for blank. We want to make sure that we are doing it to solid companies that are cash flowing, that are boring businesses, that are been around for the last few decades, and they will continue to be around for the next few decades. So putting those into the horrible category. All right, guys, next ones we got on the block. Got vehicle dent removal. I'm going to put that up here in okay. The only reason why this is not going up higher is because, again, low barrier to entry, okay? And it doesn't have a recurring aspect. So it only has one, which is recession resistance. Cars are going to get hail damage. Cars are going to get dings. That's going to happen no matter what industry. People are always going to want to have that fixed. And if you have a vehicle dent removal service that's better than them bringing it to the dealership, and you can do it at a better cost, these people will have customers. So I think that's a great business model. It just doesn't have the barrier to entry, and it doesn't have a recurring nature to it. So that's why it gets put into okay. All right, guys, construction, bad. And okay, so this is from someone who's owned a construction company before and no longer have it. You can make a lot of money in construction, and you can lose a lot of money in construction. It's depending on the type of construction that you do. If it's new construction, building homes and structures, you can make a lot of money when times are good, the last few years, and then you're losing money big time, which is right now. There's just a very cyclical up and down type of relationship when it comes to construction. And I'm not a fan of that. So when we're looking at construction, you also, the labor force for construction is super volatile, right? You're getting guys who have skill sets that are not the most skilled, right? So you're looking at guys who are doing sheetrock, you're guys who are laying down tile. All this stuff takes skill sets, but you're usually competing against labor that is people come in and they undercut you, or if you have another guy who has a big project, he'll come to your work site, he'll talk to your guys, offer them $1 more an hour or $3 an hour or more, and they're going to leave you, right? There's no loyalty there. And so really building out a strong team to take on and scale is very hard to do. And so I'm not a fan of it. I steer my students away from doing these types of deals, even though they can show a lot of cash flow. They can be super cool. You're thinking HGTV, I'm going to go out and flip homes. I strongly caution you to reconsider. Do not go down that path. Okay, guys. The restaurant. How did I get out of here? The restaurant's back here. Okay. Let's do electrical services. Let's put those in good. And we're going to put HVAC right next to them because they're pretty much the same. And then, do I see any others up here? In plumbing. Okay, all three. These are usually a bundle when we talk about them, right? So the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical services. So this would be like your electricians. These are all licensed, so there's a barrier to entry. They all can have recurring aspects of maintenance contracts. So if you have a guy install an AC at your house, he might say, hey, we do this program where we come by 3 times a year to make sure your AC is operating nice. And these things are expensive units, so you want them to come by and do this on a regular basis. And we're only going to charge you $200. And then if we have to get any parts, you pay for the parts, but the labor's already covered. So these types of maintenance plans are awesome because you have a few thousand customers. Guess what? A few thousand customers times $100, $200 a year. Now you're looking at a couple $100,000 extra in revenue that's just recurring, right? And so you can do that with each of these services. They're recession resistant. People need electric, people need HVAC, AC, heating, and they need plumbing, regardless of the economic environment. So these are very good services to invest in because of the recession-proof nature. And so they have all three, right? The only reason why I'm not putting it in amazing, they're not as easy to scale as SaaS or even as accounting firms, because with accounting firms, you can bring them to be cloud-based. They're not going to be brick and mortar, and that's what we're doing with the accounting firm that I've recently acquired with some partners. We're taking it on. It's very much brick and mortar. We're pushing it into more of a cloud-based accounting firm, so that's going to take away that location eventually, and then we'll be able to operate it much like a SaaS company, right? So that's why there's the difference between why HVAC, plumbing, and electrical are in the good category, and amazing up there is the accounting firms and SaaS. All right, pressure washing, very much down here for the same reasons as dent removal. It's recession resistant. People always need it, but it's not recurring unless you do a subscription, which some commercial properties do have this as a subscription, so that you could have that, but it's definitely not a barrier to entry. It's very cheap to get started. People try to undercut you on price, so we're going to put that in okay. Car washes. Now for car washes, and I'm going to put car washes at, hold on a second, put that there. Car washes, where did I put that? All right, car washes, I'm going to put at good. Now the reason why I'm putting it at good is because car washes people have to look at these as two separate types of deals. Car washes are a real estate play, mostly, and a business play together, right? You can sometimes just do the business on its own and lease the real estate, but a lot of times the land is going to come, the owner's going to try to sell the land too. Now, because a car wash is a fixed location, that location normally is on a street corner in a commercial area where a lot of vehicles are going by, so it's a very valuable piece of land. So usually you get into a situation where the car wash itself, let's say, is doing $200,000 a year in cash flow. Well, if you do that on a business of, let's say, a 3x multiplier, that's $600,000 for the business. But that sits on a street corner that gets 50,000 cars a day that pass by it. Now that plot of land it's on, it might be worth millions, $2 or $3 million. So you add the 600,000 of the business onto the land price, and now you might be looking at $2.5 to $3.5 million. But the cash flow, when you take from it, that can't support a loan for that. Only $200,000 in cash flow after debt service, you wouldn't be able to cash flow. So these types of deals sometimes can be hard to do because if the real estate value is so high, there's not enough cash flow to purchase both. But if you're able to work out a deal through seller financing, through maybe not buying the land right away, but have an agreement where you can buy it in a few years' time and have the first right of refusal from the seller. There's ways to structure, we can get these deals done. So I'm putting this in good because these can be a little more complicated to do. Now, in terms of recession resistant, yes. In terms of recurring, yes, you can definitely do subscriptions on this type of deal. And then barrier to entry, absolutely. They're very expensive to build and to get a spot where you can do something that's going to actually be doing really well on this. All right. Okay. Let's see. And by the way, as you guys are watching this right now, I know a couple of you guys are on here watching. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. If you have questions about some of the things that I'm talking about, car washes, pressure washing, what have you, just throw it in the chat. I'll answer them right now. We're on live, so I can answer those questions. And I see them coming up right here on my screen. So I just put that out there. All right, guys. So let's look at the next. Title company. I'm going to put title company in the OK. And I don't know why that didn't do that correctly. There we go. Title company. So a title company is a little bit tricky because title companies normally are, their business is coming from the real estate market, right? So realtors, real estate attorneys, those are the ones feeding all the leads to them, and they're transacting. The great thing about title companies is they have very good margins, right? There's very little overhead. Normally you have an office, but you're charging a good amount for the services, and you have usually a pretty small team of a few people, and you can do a few $1 million a year in revenue off of a very small team with great margins. So I like title companies, but I want a title company that's not 100% focused on just real estate. Because as you can imagine right now, title companies that were a few years ago were doing really well. And now with the way the real estate market is, in terms of the record low transactions happening, they're hurting, right? And so it's very much cyclical. So I want a title company that's not just open to real estate, but also open to businesses. And really kind of focus on making multiple streams of revenue come in from different industries to that title company. So that's why I'm putting in the OK, because a lot of these have, they're tied to real estate very well, so it kind of follows the real estate cycle. So you got to try to find one that has a better niche and has other revenue coming in from different sources. All right, guys, we got our final 10 looking like here. So let's go through a couple of these. All right, so laundromat, I'm going to put up again right around the good. The reason why I wouldn't put it as excellent or amazing is because of the recurring nature. Now, if you decide, because car washes is very easy to make subscriptions, laundromats, you normally have recurring customers, right? Because if they have to go to you once, they most likely have to go to you again. Now, there's ways in which you can make a laundromat recurring, which is you offer a wash and fold service where people sign up and they drop their clothes off. It gets washed. It gets folded. They come back. They get picked up, or it gets delivered to their home. If you're doing something like that, and that laundromat has that service, then this thing would definitely jump up to the amazing. If it doesn't, I put it in the good category. It's still a great business. Cash flows. It's very semi-passive. They're recession resistant. There's a barrier to entry because of all the machinery that you have to buy to start one. And that recurring can be added, right? So that's where it kind of fluctuates between the two. Notary is jumped right up there with OK, with title companies. Very same thing. Notary services, you have way more uses for it. You know what? I'm going to take that back. Let's put that in the good. Notaries are stronger than title companies because they have so many different streams of revenue from different industries that need their services. And it's something that people always, I always get mine at the UPS store right down the street. It's like a 3-minute drive from my house. So I go there, get things done. I have probably once a month at least, I have something that has to get notarized. And so is it a recurring service? Not really, but it's definitely recession resistant because it's mandated by rules and regulations. And it's also something that has a barrier to entry because you need to go get this, you got to get the license for it, which is not crazy hard to do, but it's still a barrier for someone just to start tomorrow. All right. Okay, let's look. We got CFO services. I want to put that up here in amazing. And the reason why I put this up here is a lot of accounting firms actually are kind of seeing this pivot. And this pivot is really, really adding some really good cash flow, and especially to their profit margin. So the play that you do is you have an accounting firm that has a lot of business clients. And let's say these businesses are operating between $1 and $5 million. So they don't have enough money necessarily to add a full-time $150,000 a year CFO. But they do have enough money to pay for a fractional CFO service. That fractional CFO service let's say, charges 3 to 5K a month to do all the things that a CFO does. Cash flow analysis, they'll help with any kind of financing needs and kind of structuring out what that looks like, help with pro formas, help with cash flow projections, all the kind of big questions that an owner would have that the bookkeeper is just there to make the entries into the log. A CFO is going to give you advice. They're going to give you strategic advice. They're going to let you know what the health of your company looks like financially. So these services are exploding and they're recurring. There's definitely a barrier to entry. And also, once a business has someone who's providing the service to them, it is very sticky. It helps. It's a huge help. They love the clarity they get when they're looking at their finances. And so I would definitely put this into a recession resistance category. So that's why it's up there in the excellent. All right. So let's then go down to property management. I'm going to put this in, let's put it in okay. Property maintenance, okay. And tree trimming, I'm going to put it up in good, and we'll stop there. Okay, so for property management and property maintenance, the reason why I'm putting these into okay is because they're recession resistant in a sense. Now, property maintenance and management normally deal with clients that have properties that they're investors and they want to kind of have a hands free away from it, right? Or they have commercial clients where they're managing HOAs in large communities. So when a recession happens, if you have rental properties, and let's say rental prices go down, so your cash flow gets constricted. Well, if you're giving 10% away to a property management firm, you might rethink, oh, well, you know what, I can answer the call from the tenant. I can go to the house when things need to be fixed, and I can get 10% more cash flow by doing it myself than for them. If someone is going through a constriction in cash flow, they might decide to drop their property maintenance, management and maintenance companies. So that is why, and with property maintenance too, like these are for commercial clients, they might think it's cheaper to go in-house than to outsource it. So I wouldn't say these are the most recession resistant, but they're definitely recurring, and there's definitely some level of barrier to entry because a lot of these need licenses depending on the state. You need a pretty big labor pool in order to, on the maintenance side, to be able to handle the requests. So I would say it's got 2 out of the 3 really strongly, 1 of them not so much. All right, pool maintenance. I'm going to put in okay. And tree trimming, I'll do both of these right now. So tree trimming I put as good because barrier to entry for sure. You need a lot of equipment to do it. It's recurring because guess what? Trees grow back. So if you cut someone's yard, a lot of times these guys will do an annual fee of, hey, every year we'll come out for $1,000. We'll cut down and trim your bushes or trim your palm trees. Down here in Florida, coconuts are falling out of the sky every day, right? So people want that service to come back on a quarterly basis to make sure that a coconut's not going to fall off a tree and smack their dog in the head and give it a brain aneurysm. So those types of, they're very recurring. A lot of them are serving HOAs. A lot of them are serving residential communities. I know a couple in my community that are constantly coming by and cutting people's trees on a quarterly basis. So this is a recurring business. So I like tree trimming. You have very good margins for a service business. We're talking 30 to 40% margins. I like them a lot. The only reason why I'm not putting them into amazing is because of the scalability factor on it. All right, guys, the same thing with pool maintenance. Pool maintenance gets an okay because it's a very low barrier to entry, but it's recurring and it's also recession resistant. So that is on that end. All right, clothing brand. Pest control, painting, and vending machines. Vending machines, I'm going to put in okay. Oop, I don't know what just happened there. Let's see. Sorry, my vending machines. Put this in okay. And Uber, put that back down here. All right. So vending machines we'll put at okay. We'll put painting at okay. Let's see. Yes. So painting we're going to actually put at okay with vending machines. So on these two, hey, what's going on, Ahad? I see you put yo-yo in the chat there. Yo-yo back at you. So on vending machines and painting. Vending machines are very low barrier to entry, but they're very recurring in the sense that if you have it at a good location, you're going to have the same people that are going there, whether it's employees of that location or if it's in like a hotel where I had mine, you have people that are constantly coming to the hotel, going into the lobby, they're hungry at night, and they're going to the vending machine. So very much in an aspect can be recurring. It's also recession resistant. These are the lower barrier foods in terms of price are always recession resistant. So the candy bars and the snack items, those usually do not see a big hit during recessions. It's normally the more expensive items, the steaks, the organic foods. That's what gets to see some of the hit when there is a recession. All right, and painting. Painting is a great business. I have a couple people that I know who've acquired these types of deals. Painting is, it's a little harder to scale. It's definitely recession resistant. It's not recurring though, and it has a pretty low barrier to entry because paint and the skill set to learn how to paint is not that difficult, and it doesn't take too much time. And so you really only have one solid key that we're talking about when we're talking about the trifecta with painting. You have very good margins though with painting, and so you're looking at around 50% gross profit margins. So I'll put it up there in the okay category. Clothing brand and pest control. Pest control, I'm going to put that up here in good, and I'm going to put clothing brand in bad. Now, the reason why I'm going to put pest control up in good is because it's recurring. There is a barrier to entry, and it is recession resistant, right? So the only reason why it's not going into amazing is because of scalability, again, with labor. It's hard to find good people to do this. But in terms of the way it's structured, these can be very, very lucrative to have. And then the last one I just talked about was the clothing brand. Now, the clothing brand is, I'm thinking in my head when someone says they have a clothing brand, they're selling it on Amazon or on eBay or what have you, and they're selling kind of a premium niche product. These can be very lucrative. They can do very well. Hey, the shirt that I'm wearing on right now came from an Instagram ad that I saw, right, that I liked. So all of that is very much very true. But when it gets to an acquisition, it's very hard to acquire these brands and have the same success as the original owners, right? The original owners had the vision, they had the style, they kind of put everything into place. And with the brand, you have to constantly be putting out new content, new clothing, new looks, that's why it's always seasonality. So that is the case when you're talking about those types of businesses. Which is why I don't have them and I'm not looking to acquire them. All right, so let's go over to the chat. We got Ed again. Any thoughts on pack and ship mailbox businesses? I like mailbox businesses a lot. Pack and ship. So this would be like your UPS store, right? A UPS store, which is the one I go down the street to actually get my notary services done. I go in there, they do pack and ship, and they also have mailboxes that you can rent and you can use for your business and kind of use that as your business address. So they're great businesses. I know a couple of people that just have mailbox businesses where you rent out that mailbox as a private person or as a company. You use it for your address, and they're paying $20 a month for it, and you got a few hundred of them inside the store. That's all you do, and those things cash flow like crazy, and they're also very semi-passive. So I'm very much a fan of that business model. I've looked at deals like that before. I actually have a student right now who's buying one that's not a UPS brand. It's an independent one, and he's buying it and should be closing hopefully in the next week or two. So maybe I'll have I'll do a testimonial video with him and post it here after he's acquired it to let you guys know a little bit more about that deal. But I do like those, and I think that they are a great idea on that side. All right, if any of you guys have, before we move on to the next topic, if any of you guys have any other industry ideas or want my take on anything else, let me know and I will talk about it. But we're going to jump right over into our next segment, which is about lessons that I learned. 25 lessons that I learned I wish I knew earlier. Okay, so this segment is I had a tweet that I did that was I had a tweet that I did that got a lot of good feedback, right? And so I'm taking the content for the message right now, and I'm going back to the tweet and kind of going through some of the lessons that I've learned. And again, if you guys, this is very much supposed to be interactive. If you guys want to ask me questions or chat, throw it here in the chat. I'll answer all the questions you got here. This time is for you guys that are staying here. I appreciate it, that are watching along with me, right? Okay, so One of the ways of the way I broke down this post was I said, hey, between the ages of, like, since I was 18 years old all the way to 40 years old, which I'm 34, but that's kind of the age bracket who I'm talking to. Here are the things that have kind of really hit me in terms of my biggest life lessons that I've had. And hopefully you guys can share if this is something that's valuable to you guys. First one is you only have one body, right? You only have one life, one body, one mind. You got to make the most of it and take care of yourself. I know a lot of entrepreneurs in this space that are killing it in their bank accounts, but they're also killing their bodies. And they're working 20-hour days. They're drinking every bad energy drink that's out there, like 10 of them a day. They are just really not taking care of themselves. And so that is something where, first lesson, it's so easy as an entrepreneur to get into that because the more you work, the more you make, and it becomes addictive, right? It's like, it's just total more effort, more money, more effort, more money. And to put a limit on that and to put it kind of a stopgap there and say, nope, I'm not going past 40 hours this week, no matter what. That is the limit that I'm going to put down for myself, and I'm sticking to it. It's hugely important. So take care. You got one body, right? You got one life, one body. Take care of it. Now, the second part of that is kind of going into the entrepreneurship mindset, right? Which is you can start learning a profitable skill at any time. And I mean any time. It is something that is available to almost everybody. And it's not hard to figure out. You go out there. One of the great ways to go out and find out what people are paying for and what is a good profitable skill is go to Fiverr.com, go to Upwork.com, go and see what services are out there, go and see the people who have the most reviews, what services are they providing, how are they providing it. It does not take much investigative work to find out what people are willing to pay for. Okay, so if you want to get started down the road, I'm a big acquisition guy, but guess what? I didn't start off back when I was 18 with my first acquisition. I had a lot of kind of little side hustles, right? In doing that, I was always trying to find out what people were willing to pay for, then finding out how do I develop that skill so that they would pay me to do it, and then was it worth my time to scale it? A lot of times the answer was no, but sometimes it was yes. And I focused on scaling it, and it became something that became a great revenue generator. All right, guys. We're not going to go through all 25, but there's some on here that I highlighted that I wanted to talk through. So another thing is you need to take a very proactive mindset when it comes to acquisitions, when it comes to entrepreneurship in general. It is very much a lifestyle in which you have to go out and make it happen. You cannot rely on friends. You cannot rely on mentors or partners. You need to go out there, especially in the beginning, and you need to put in the effort and the time to do it yourself. One, you're going to learn how to do it, right? You're going to learn how to do it yourself. You're going to learn how to do a skill, and that's now intrinsic to what value you're able to offer to other people, which is critical. But also you realize throughout the process that if you want something to get done, there's only one person in the world that's going to care about it, and that's you, right? So getting that in your mindset early on so that when you're looking at these different side hustle ideas or when you're looking to get started on your first acquisition, the only person that you need to convince that this is going to get done is yourself, and to continue to push that throughout the entire process. That you're going to get it done, you have the tools necessary, you have the ability to do it, so let's go out and get it done. All right, guys, 2 more, and then we're going to jump on to our final topic here. All right, so let's going down number 16, right? This is a good one. Embracing discomfort, right? And why that's so important. I actually, at this point in my career, I get uncomfortable when I feel comfortable, right? Well, if I get to a point where everything's working well, I closed a good deal, I have a couple deals in the pipeline, my students are doing well, my family's doing well, I start to get kind of antsy, all right? Because that to me is abnormal. As an entrepreneur, there's always things that are breaking, always things that are going to need your attention. And so when you get in a place where everything is starting to go smoothly, that's when I get kind of antsy and nervous. Okay, what am I missing? Something must not be going right. I just don't know it. And then I get really, really kind of anxious because it's like, all right, something's happening that I don't know is happening because there's no way that everything is going well. And so you need to get a part of your mindset used to being uncomfortable. And this is not just with business, right? This is not just with business. This is with your physical body, right? The whole reason why you go out and work out and you get sore is your muscles are, you're tearing the muscles and then they're growing, right? And constantly being uncomfortable when you're working out, constantly challenging yourself is going to make you a more in shape, more athletic, more healthy person, right? And it's the same way when it comes to your spirituality and your faith, the same way when it comes to your relationships, right? Constantly making sure that you're going out and serving other people. And sometimes serving is uncomfortable. Sometimes it's annoying. Sometimes it's tiring. Sometimes they don't reciprocate. But it doesn't matter because you're still going out there to do something to constantly grow in that area of your life. And then when it comes to business and entrepreneurial aspects, for right now, for example, let's say everything is going great. I finished a deal. I got more deals in my pipeline. My students are doing well. If everything is going great and there's no room for improvement, that means I'm not looking hard enough, right? Now's the time to go back and take the time to focus on areas where maybe I haven't looked at in the past few months because I was so busy putting out these fires that these little sparks over here I didn't pay attention to, right? And go in there and pay attention to those sparks. Okay, so on that. Last one that I want to go through right now is the regrets, right? Because I have a lot of people who reach out to me that are a little older than me, 40s or 50s, and they always tell me like, hey, I regretted not trying to do this earlier on, right? When I didn't have a family or I had less so I could risk more. But now I have some assets. I don't want to take the risk of trying something new. And the answer to that is that you want to regret never trying and not failure. I never regret the times that I failed at all, whether that was in a relationship, whether that was in business, whether that was in my faith journey. All failures there I learned from and I walked forward and got better at them. What I do regret is never trying, never going out and doing the sport, or never going out and trying to learn that skill because it was hard, or anything that has to go with that. So those are the things that I regret. I regret that I didn't try. I regret that I was weak and and was more scared about failing than about the possibility of succeeding. That's the part that I regret. I never regret going out there, falling flat on my face, but I tried, right? I can learn from it, decide never to do it again, or hey, if I had done A, B, and C, I would have done much better. So let me go and try again and get better and better and better. That's very much about my journey with business acquisition. A lot about my journey with business acquisition was going out there. My first acquisition was a mess, right? Now, it ended up being good in the end, but it took me 18 months. I spent thousands of dollars that went down the drain on other deals that didn't work out. And I was frustrated, gave up nearly 20 times in that 18 months, was super depressed because I had put money into it. And the only thing that kept me going was that I had told people that I was doing it. And so I had this shame about like telling those same people who were constantly checking up on me, hey Ben, how's that acquisition going? I didn't want to tell them I gave up because it was hard. And so I constantly pushed myself through and eventually did it. And now 7 later, I can say it was one of the best things that I've done, right? So using that same mindset about your life in your physical health, in your spiritual health, in your entrepreneurial journey is critical, right? Okay, guys, let's see if I can throw in one more of the lessons that I learned. I would say the last one let's do is always be transparent and always be honest with yourself. Some people I know out there have a very hard time being honest with themselves. They're honest with other people, but it's very hard for them to be honest with themselves. And so one of the things that I like to do is, you guys have probably guessed it from this conversation so far, I'm a man of faith. That's a huge part of my life. And so every day I pray and I try to reflect and I try to really take an inward look at not only what I'm doing, but the motivations behind it. And a lot of times it's a wake-up call, right? I realize how selfish I am. I realize how arrogant and prideful I can be. And by doing those things and making that into my daily routine, I'm able to constantly look from a place of vulnerability and understanding my weaknesses. And by knowing what those are, I make much better decisions. I partner with much better people. And overall, it's going to have much better results because I'm honest with myself and I'm honest with the things that I struggle with, right? And so a lot of people out there try to just block it out of their mind. If it's something that you struggle with, you just don't talk about it, don't think about it. But those are the things that you really need to talk about. Those are the things you really need to think about because it's holding you back. And I promise you, it's holding you back. I look at my own life and it's the difference between black and white and how that change happened when I finally decided to stop lying to myself and to really understand my vulnerabilities and the things that I'm not good at and start to make decisions based on knowing where I come from strength, but also where I know my vulnerabilities are. All right. So enough with the self-help talk there and going through some of the things that I've learned over the last, I would say over the last decade, but especially over the last 5 years. So we got about another 10 minutes, guys, left in the stream right now. So before I jump into kind of some final thoughts, I want to open it up to the chat. I see a couple of you guys have put some stuff in there. If you guys have any other questions regarding businesses or different business models, or ideas that you've seen or you've been looking on Biz Buy Sell and you were looking at certain types of businesses that you want my take on, you guys can throw it in the chat and I can definitely give you my hot take on it. But if not, then what we're going to do is we're going to end with another thread that I put on Twitter not too long ago, and that one is on basically how you go about getting ahead of the vast majority of people in building wealth, right? And there's about if I remember correctly, there was I had about 10 of these or about 7 of these, but anyway, I'm gonna go through them between 1 and 7 and kind of put them out there and kind of give my thoughts, and then we're gonna end and kind of leave it at that. All right. So first things first here is that the big thing that made a huge difference in my life when it came to entrepreneurship and getting to where I am today is through reading. And it doesn't just mean reading books. It was honestly reading books, but also reading Twitter threads, right? Twitter threads are a huge aspect. Reading Reddit threads. Now, Reddit has a bunch of junk on it, but there's also a bunch of really good things as well that you can find on it. Another thing to be reading is going out there and actually paying and investing in courses, right? So that I would consider that all part of learning and reading. There's so much free information on YouTube. This is on YouTube, right? And I have videos where I talk through the process ad nauseum. Going out there and just diving in headfirst into the content that you want to learn is the most important thing for getting ahead of 99% of other people in that realm. Next is income streams. Now, in order to become not just a millionaire, but in order to become financially free, you want to have multiple income streams. You never want to put all your eggs in one basket. You always want to make sure that you are diversifying. Now, for me, I diversify through business ownership. I like to acquire businesses that are cash flowing, that are going to pay me every single month. Now, there's other things. Real estate, you can also go out there and you can get recurring revenue from that and income. There's 20 different ways from Sunday in which you can actually make recurring revenue that's coming to you in multiple arrays, right? So, but the goal is for every person out there, if you want to become, get to that millionaire status and beyond, I think if I remember correctly, the average millionaire has 7 streams of income, right? So you have your main W-2 job. Maybe you have a small e-com business on the side. Maybe you're doing some freelance work on Upwork or Fiverr. That's 3, right? Keep on working at building those up, and as soon as those get up to a point where you're able to extract yourself from the business, you can then invest in the next one, right? So having that mindset of, for me, it's go and acquire a business, build it up, extract myself, someone else is running the day-to-day, I go and do it again and again and again, right? And that's how I'm building up these streams of income. So put that into your head, multiple streams of income. Next is successful friends. I think the thing was the average of the 5 closest friends to you in terms of your net worth. If you take the 5 people that you hang out with the most and you average their income or their net worth, that's very close to what your net worth is. And I think the whole point of that is successful people surround themselves with successful people. And it doesn't mean you can't be friends with people that don't have money. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is if you want to get access to opportunities, if you want to get access to people that are going to teach you and mentor you to do things that you don't know how to do, you're going to have to go find that through relationships that are normally tied with success, right? And so going out there, making friends, going out and giving more value than you're receiving, that's a great way to get involved in those networks. Go out there, do work for free, do things for free to give value without expecting anything in return. And then when they do, you're able to go out and build a really solid network that which you can grow. And that's how referrals happen. That's how business partners become business partners. That is the way to get started in this game of really amping up your net worth. All right, next is, I would say, use failure. We already talked through this before. Invest and then be consistent. So on investing is not something that I say lightly. Investing is something where I would definitely start out only investing in things that you really understand well. And for me, that is business acquisitions. That's where I'm investing. I invest actually very little in other things. I invest very little in the markets. I invest very little when it comes to crypto or anything else like that. For me, it's mostly just business acquisitions and then real estate because I understand them. They make sense. They're hard assets. They pay me cash flow, and I know how to scale that model. Whereas with the markets, yeah, there's people out there that are super smart. I can give my money to them, and they're supposed to invest it on my behalf. But if I don't understand what they're doing and why they're doing it, I get uncomfortable because how am I able to really know what is happening with my money if I don't fully understand it? And so I'm not saying this is investment advice. I'm not saying don't go out there and invest in the stock market or go give it to your financial advisor. I'm not saying any of that. All I'm saying is that try to understand completely when you first start getting investing and you have your first $10,000 or $5,000 to put in investing or $1,000, truly understand it, right? Now, if you want to start off with just, hey, I'm putting $500 a month into the index funds, that's fine. That's perfectly fine because that's just invested in the market abroad. But what I'm saying is putting yourself into individual stocks or individual businesses or individual real estate, before you get to that point, make sure you fully understand what you are doing. All right. Okay. And the last one that we mentioned was be consistent. One of my personality defaults back in the day, which stopped me from getting to the point of actually acquiring wealth, was that I was not consistent. I would start a million things. I was a starter. I was not a finisher. Right? I would go out there, I would do something, it was fun. I had the rush of starting a new idea, a new business. I would tell my wife, I would tell my friend, my family, this is what I'm doing, this is awesome. It's the best thing since sliced bread. And then like a month later, I'm not doing it anymore. Right? And business acquisition was different because I had told so many people about it. And then because they were intrigued, asking me about it constantly. So now I felt beholden. I created this social pressure on myself that made me go out and actually complete it. But when it came to all these other ones, I would kind of just tell my wife, like I said, I would tell the people I'm close to. I would get super excited about it, spend a couple $100 on a course, and then 30 days later, because I didn't get instant results, I didn't get instant gratification, I stopped. And I can honestly tell you that there's so many ways to make money out there. Business acquisition is one of them that I love, but there's a lot of ways out there to make money. Pick one and be consistent. Give it a time period that is fair to you and to the process you're trying to learn. So if you're going to go out there and do Kindle direct publishing, and that's a great way to make money. I'm actually looking to acquire some of those KDP businesses. But if you want to learn how to do it, give yourself 6 months. Commit to that 6 months. Tell your friends to hold you accountable to that 6 months. Give your all. Be consistent. Go out there every week, putting in the hours necessary. And then at the end of the time period, you can look back and say, was it worth my time? Do I see this growing to something that can actually become enough cash flow for me and my family to justify the time that I'm spending on it? And if the answer is no, then again, you didn't fail. You gave your best shot. You put it out there. But if you give up after the first couple of weeks, first month, just because things get hard or you don't get instant gratification, then that is something that's going to hold you back. All right. Guys, I know we're right at the top of the hour now. I appreciate all of you guys jumping on with me. We're trying to do these every single week. Again, I love talking about business and business acquisition, but today we also had a little bit of just life lessons and the things that I've learned to get me to this place. So if you guys have any questions or you want me to talk about specific businesses, throw them down in the comment section, put them in the chat. And I love this to be a time where we can interact back and forth. So appreciate you guys staying here for listening the whole time. Have an awesome day. God bless. Talk to you guys soon.